The sky above Velian 7 burned orange and red. Explosions lit up the darkness like deadly fireworks. Tae-sung ran through the smoke, his medical bag bouncing against his back. Around him, soldiers screamed orders and weapons fired without stopping. "Medic! We need a medic over here!" Someone shouted. Tae-sung changed direction and ran toward the voice. A young soldier sat against a broken wall, holding his bleeding leg. Tae-sung dropped to his knees and pulled out bandages. His hands moved fast but steady. He had done this hundreds of times before. "You'll be okay," Tae-sung said, wrapping the wound tight. "The transport ships are coming. Just hold on." The soldier nodded, his face pale with pain. Tae-sung helped him stand and pointed toward the evacuation zone. Other soldiers grabbed their injured friend and carried him away. Tae-sung looked around the battlefield. Bodies lay everywhere. Some were human. Others were Kethran, the enemy aliens his people had been fighting for 200 years. The Kethrans looked almost human, but their skin had a silver shimmer and their eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "All units fall back." "Fall back now!" The voice crackled through Tae-sung's radio. "The Kethrans are advancing. We're losing this position." Tae-sung grabbed his bag and started running toward the evacuation point. The transport ships sat in the distance, their engines already warming up. Soldiers poured into them like water into a drain. Time was running out. Then he heard it. A small sound almost lost in the noise of war, a child crying. Tae-sung stopped. He looked around, trying to find where the sound came from. There, behind a pile of broken metal and concrete, something moved. The crying grew louder. "Are you kidding me?" Tae-sung whispered to himself, but his feet were already moving toward the sound. He reached the rubble and looked down. A child stared back at him. Not a human child, a Kethran child. The little one's silver skin was covered in dust and blood. A metal beam pinned the child's leg to the ground. The child's glowing eyes were wide with fear and pain. Tae-sung's radio crackled again. "Final transport leaves in 3 minutes. If you're not here, you're staying behind." The child looked at him and reached out one small hand. Tae-sung knew what he should do. The smart thing. The safe thing. The thing every other soldier would do, leave. The Kethrans were the enemy. This was their child, not his problem. He needed to save himself, but he couldn't move. He couldn't leave a child to die alone and afraid. "Okay, little one," Tae-sung said softly. "Let's get you out of here." He set down his bag and grabbed the metal beam. It was heavy, much heavier than he expected. He pulled and pushed, but it barely moved. The child whimpered in pain. 2 minutes? The radio screamed. 2 minutes until final departure. Tae-sung planted his feet and pulled harder. His muscles burned. His hands bled where the sharp metal cut into them. The beam shifted an inch. Then another. The child tried to pull its leg free, but it was still trapped. Come on, Tae-sung grunted. With one final pull, the beam lifted enough. The child yanked its leg free and scrambled backward. Tae-sung dropped the beam and it crashed to the ground. He picked up the small Kethran, who was lighter than a human child but still solid in his arms. Got you, Tae-sung said. I got you. He turned and ran. The evacuation zone was far away now, too far. The transport ships were already lifting off the ground. Tae-sung pushed his legs harder, running faster than he ever had before. Wait! He shouted, but his voice was lost in the roar of engines. Then he heard a new sound. Enemy fire. The Kethran army had reached their position. Plasma bolts flew through the air, bright green streaks of deadly energy. One hit the ground next to Tae-sung, throwing dirt into the air. The child in his arms screamed and buried its face against his chest. Tae-sung curved his body around the little one, using himself as a shield. More plasma bolts flew past them. One hit a nearby building, making it collapse. Tae-sung, what are you doing? It was Hyunwoo, his squad leader, hanging out of the last transport ship. Leave that thing and run. I can't, Tae-sung shouted back. It's the enemy. Leave it. It's a child. Hyunwoo's face twisted with anger and fear, but he held out his hand. Then run faster, you fool. Tae-sung ran. His lungs burned. His legs felt like they would break. The child held onto him tight, its small fingers digging into his uniform. The transport ship started to rise higher. A plasma bolt hit Tae-sung in the back. Pain exploded through his body, hot and sharp. He stumbled but didn't fall. He couldn't fall, not yet. The child needed him. Just a few more steps. Another bolt hit his shoulder. Taesung screamed but kept running. The transport ship was lifting away now, 3 feet off the ground. 4 feet. 5. With the last of his strength, Taesung jumped. His hands caught the edge of the transport's door. Hyunwoo and another soldier grabbed him, pulling him inside. The Catherine child tumbled onto the metal floor, safe. Taesung collapsed. Blood spread across the floor beneath him. His vision started to go dark. Through the fading light, he could see the child sitting up, looking at him with those strange, glowing eyes. The little one crawled over and put one small hand on Taesung's face. "Thank you," the child whispered in broken human language. Taesung tried to smile, but the darkness was too strong. He heard Hyunwoo shouting for medical supplies. He felt hands pressing bandages against his wounds, but it all seemed far away now, like a dream. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was the child's face, still watching him. Those glowing eyes seemed to memorize every detail of the man who saved them. Behind the child, through the transport's open door, Taesung could see Catherine warships appearing in the sky, chasing them. Then everything went black and Taesung knew nothing more. White lights, beeping machines, the smell of antiseptic. These were the first things Taesung noticed when he woke up. His body felt heavy, like someone had filled his bones with concrete. When he tried to move, pain shot through his back and shoulder. "Don't move." A nurse appeared beside his bed. She was human, older, with kind eyes. "You've been unconscious for 3 weeks. Your injuries were severe. 3 weeks. Taesung let that sink in. The last thing he remembered was the child's face and the darkness pulling him under. "The Catherine child," he said, his voice rough. "Where is it?" The nurse's expression changed. She looked uncomfortable. "The alien is in military custody. That's all I can tell you. Is it alive? Is the child okay? I really can't say more." The nurse checked his monitors and left quickly, like she didn't want to be asked more questions. Over the next few days, Taesung learned pieces of what happened. The transport had escaped the Catherine ships. They made it back to the Terran Defense Fleet. Taesung's injuries required emergency surgery and weeks of recovery. The Catherine child had been taken away immediately. But there was more. Something everyone seemed nervous to talk about. Finally, on his 5th day awake, his sister Jiwoo arrived. She worked as a journalist and her face told him the news was bad. "Taesung," she said, sitting beside his bed. "You're being charged with treason." "What?" He tried to sit up, but pain stopped him. "The military is calling what you did aiding the enemy. They say you disobeyed direct orders and put human lives at risk to save an alien." Taesung felt cold. It was a child. Just a child. "I know." Jiwoo took his hand. "A lot of people know. Your helmet camera recorded everything. The footage has spread everywhere. Some people are calling you a hero. Others are calling you a traitor. The military's in the middle of it all and they've decided to court-martial you." The trial began 2 weeks later. Taesung could walk now, though his back still hurt. They moved him from the hospital ship to Terra Prime, the main command center for Earth's military. The courtroom was large and cold, filled with officers in formal uniforms. Admiral Dae-hyun led the prosecution. He was a tall man with gray hair and hard eyes. "Medic Taesung," he began, his voice echoing in the room. "You stand accused of violating direct orders, aiding the enemy, and endangering your unit. How do you plead?" "Not guilty," Taesung said. His lawyer was Bora, a military attorney who volunteered to defend him. She was young but fierce, with a sharp mind and strong beliefs. "Your Honor," she said, "my client saved a child's life. That's what medics do. That's what humans do." "That child was Catherine," Admiral Dae-hyun said. "We are at war with the Catherines. Every resource we give them, including mercy, is a weapon they can use against us." "It was a child," Bora repeated. "Not a soldier. Not a weapon. A child." The trial continued for days. They showed the helmet camera footage over and over. Taesung watched himself on the screen, running through fire, protecting the small Catherine with his own body. Every time he felt the same. He would do it again, witnesses testified. Hyunwoo, his squad leader, took the stand. "I told him to leave it," Hyunwoo said. "But he wouldn't. He never would. That's who Taesung is. He saves people, even when it's stupid. Even when it costs him." "And did his actions put your unit in danger?" Admiral Dae-hyun asked. Hyunwoo paused. "Yes, the transport almost left without him. If we'd waited any longer, we all might have died." Outside the courtroom, the trial became huge news. Ji-woo wrote articles about it. Other journalists picked up the story. Soon everyone across human space was talking about Tai-sung and the Catherine child. Some people protested outside the command center, holding signs that said heroes save children and humanity means compassion. Others held different signs. Traitors must pay and Earth first. On the final day of the trial, they brought new information. The Catherine child had a designation now, subject K7. Military scientists were studying it at a research facility. They wouldn't say where. What are they doing to it? Taesung asked Bora. She looked uncomfortable. I don't know. They won't tell me. In her closing argument, Bora stood before the judges and spoke clearly. We say we're fighting this war to protect humanity, to protect our values, our civilization. But what are those values? What kind of civilization lets a child die because it has the wrong color skin? Because it was born on the wrong planet? She pointed at Taesung. This man showed real human values. Courage, compassion, the willingness to sacrifice for an innocent life. If we punish him for that, then we're saying those values don't matter. We're saying the war has made us into the very monsters we claim to fight against. Admiral Dae-hun gave his closing argument too. War is not about individual feelings. It's about survival. The Catherines have killed millions of humans. They would show us no mercy. We cannot afford to be soft. We cannot afford to be weak. If we let soldiers choose which orders to follow based on their emotions, we have no military, we have chaos. The judges went away to decide. For 2 days, Taesung waited. Ji-woo stayed with him. So did Bora. They didn't talk much. There wasn't much to say. When the judges returned, the courtroom was packed. Every seat was filled. Cameras recorded everything. We find the defendant not guilty of treason, the lead judge said. Taesung felt his chest loosen. He could breathe again, but the judge wasn't finished. However, the defendant did violate direct orders in a combat situation. For this, he is hereby dishonorably discharged from the Terran Defense Fleet. His medical license is revoked. He will be released to house arrest on Earth for a period of 6 months. It wasn't prison, but it wasn't freedom either. A dishonorable discharge meant his military career was over. His medical license being revoked meant he couldn't work as a medic anymore. Everything he'd built, everything he was, had been taken away. I'm sorry, Bora said afterward. Don't be, Taesung replied. I'd do it again. They sent him to a small apartment in Seoul, an electronic monitor attached to his ankle. He could go nowhere except the apartment. Every day was the same. He watched the news. He saw people arguing about what he'd done. Some supported him. Others hated him. Ji-woo visited when she could. She told him stories from outside. The protests were getting bigger. People wanted to know what happened to Subject K7. The military wouldn't answer. 3 months into his house arrest, something strange happened. Taesung woke up one morning to find a message on his computer. The system said it arrived during the night, but there was no record of where it came from. It was encrypted, layers and layers of code that should have been impossible to send to a civilian terminal. Taesung stared at the message for hours before finally opening it. Inside was a set of coordinates and a single symbol. The symbol was Catherine. He recognized it from intelligence briefings. When he looked up the translation, his hands started shaking. The symbol meant debt. Someone somewhere knew what he'd done, and they wanted to meet him. Taesung spent days thinking about the message. The coordinates pointed to an abandoned industrial complex on the edge of Seoul. The place had been empty for years, left to rust after the factories closed down. Why would anyone want to meet there? More importantly, who sent the message? The encryption was military grade, maybe better. No civilian could do that. But military wouldn't use Catherine symbols, unless it was a trap. Taesung paced his small apartment. The ankle monitor beeped softly with each step, reminding him he was still a prisoner. If he left the apartment, alarms would sound. Military police would come. He'd go to real prison then, not just house arrest, but the message kept calling to him. Debt. Someone owed him something, or maybe he owed someone. Either way, he needed to know. On the 5th night after receiving the message, Taesung made his decision. He found old tools in the apartment's maintenance closet. Working carefully, he opened the ankle monitor's casing. Inside was a simple tracking chip and a tamper alarm. He'd seen these before in the military. He knew how they worked. It took 2 hours, but he managed to remove the chip without triggering the alarm. He attached it to a small robot vacuum cleaner his sister had given him. The vacuum would move around the apartment randomly, making it look like he was still there. At midnight, Tae-sung left his apartment for the first time in 3 months. The hallway was dark and quiet. Most of his neighbors were asleep. He took the stairs instead of the elevator, moving silently down 20 floors. The streets of Seoul were never completely empty, but at this hour, they were quiet. Tae-sung kept his head down and walked fast. The industrial complex was on the other side of the city. He couldn't take public transport with cameras everywhere. He had to walk. It took 3 hours. By the time Tae-sung reached the complex, his legs ached and his back hurt from old injuries. The buildings loomed above him, dark and silent. Broken windows stared down like empty eyes. Rust covered everything. He checked the coordinates again. Building 7, 3rd floor. Tae-sung found the building and climbed the stairs. Each step echoed in the emptiness. His heart pounded. This was stupid. This was dangerous. This was probably a trap. But he kept climbing. The 3rd floor was one large open space where factory machines used to sit. Now there was nothing but dust and moonlight coming through broken windows. Tae-sung stood in the middle of the room and waited. "Hello?" he called out. His voice echoed back to him. Nothing happened. Minutes passed. Tae-sung began to think he'd made a mistake. Then he heard footsteps behind him. He turned quickly. A figure stood near the stairs, hidden in shadow. As it moved forward into the moonlight, Tae-sung's breath caught in his throat. She was Catherine, tall and slim, with silver skin that seemed to glow softly in the darkness. Her eyes were bright blue, shining like stars. She wore a simple gray suit, almost human in style, but moved with a grace no human could match. "Tae-sung," she said in perfect Korean. "Thank you for coming." He took a step back, his hand moving to his waist where he used to carry a weapon. But he had no weapon now. "Who are you?" "My name is Velmara. I am an emissary." She bowed her head slightly, a gesture of respect. "I come with a message from Queen Lyravel of the Kethrin Empire." "The Queen?" Tae-sung couldn't hide his shock. "Why would your queen send anyone to me?" Velmara smiled, and Tae-sung was surprised to see it looked almost human. "Because of the child you saved on Velian 7. The child you protected with your own body. The child you gave up everything to rescue." "Subject K7, Tae-sung said bitterly. "That's what they call it now." "No," Velmara said firmly. "His name is Narin. Prince Narin, youngest offspring of Queen Lyravel." The words hit Tae-sung like a physical blow. "Prince? The child was royalty?" "Yes. Prince Narin should never have been on Velian 7. His caretaker fled there during internal fighting within our empire. She thought he would be safe in a contested zone. She was wrong." Velmara's expression darkened. "When your people attacked, she tried to evacuate. She died protecting him, but she couldn't free him from the rubble." Tae-sung remembered the small hand reaching out to him, the terrified eyes, the child's weight in his arms as he ran through fire. "I didn't know. I just knew it was a child who needed help. That is why the Queen seeks you," Velmara said. "You saved her child without knowing who he was, without expecting reward. You saved him because it was right. In Kethrin culture, we have a concept called shalver. It means a life debt that transcends all other bonds, even war." "What does she want from me?" "She wants to meet you. She wants to thank you personally. And she wants to repay the debt." Before Tae-sung could respond, the building's alarm suddenly blared. Red lights flashed throughout the complex. A voice boomed from speakers. "This is military police. The building is surrounded. Come out with your hands visible." Tae-sung cursed. Someone must have tracked him, or maybe a neighbor saw him leave and reported it. Either way, he was caught. "I'm sorry," he said to Velmara. "You should go. If they find you here, they'll arrest you or worse." Velmara looked unconcerned. "Will you meet with the Queen?" "How can I? I'm about to go to prison." "That is not an answer. Will you meet with her? Tai-sung heard boots on the stairs. The military police were coming. In seconds, they'd be here. He looked at this alien woman who had risked coming to Earth, into human territory, just to deliver a message. He thought about the child, Prince Narin, and wondered what happened to him. Yes, Tai-sung said. Tell your queen I'll meet her. Velmara smiled again. Good. We will arrange it. The military police burst through the door, weapons raised. Freeze! Don't move! But Velmara was already moving. She ran toward the nearest wall, and Tai-sung expected her to be trapped. Instead, her body seemed to shimmer. She passed through the solid wall like it was water, disappearing into the night. The police stared in shock. One of them fired after her, but the bullets just hit concrete. She was gone. What the hell was that? One officer shouted. They grabbed Tai-sung and forced him to his knees. Someone recognized him. It's the traitor, the one from the trial. They put handcuffs on him, tight enough to hurt. As they dragged him down the stairs, Tai-sung looked back at the wall where Velmara had disappeared. Kethrin technology was more advanced than humans realized. If they could phase through solid matter, what else could they do? Outside, more police waited. News cameras had already arrived, drawn by reports of an escaped prisoner. Tai-sung saw his neighbor Young-ho standing with the police, looking smug. The old man had been in military intelligence once. He must have been watching Tai-sung's apartment, waiting for a mistake. Got you, Young-ho said, as they pushed Tai-sung into a police vehicle. I knew you were working with them. Tai-sung said nothing. What could he say? They had caught him meeting with a Kethrin emissary. That looked bad. Really bad. At the police station, they separated him from the others and put him in a small room. Hours passed. Finally, Ji-woo arrived, furious and worried. What were you thinking? She demanded. They sent someone, Tai-sung said quietly. The child I saved. It was a prince. The queen wants to meet me. Ji-woo stared at him. Then slowly her expression changed from anger to something else. Interest. The journalist in her was waking up. The Kethrin queen wants to meet you? Yes. Where? When? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. Tai-sung, you're going to real prison now. There's no way. Then find a way, he interrupted. This could be important, Ji-woo. Maybe the most important thing that's happened since the war started. A human saved the queen's child. She wants to repay that debt. This could mean something. His sister looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. I'll see what I can do. But Tai-sung, if we do this, if we help you meet with her, there's no going back. You'll be a traitor for real. I know, Tai-sung said. But maybe some things are worth it. Ji-woo worked fast. She had contacts everywhere, built over years as a journalist. Some owed her favors. Others believed in what Tai-sung had done. Within a week, she had a plan. It wasn't legal. It wasn't safe. But it was possible. They moved Tai-sung to a regular prison while his new trial was prepared. The prison was less secure than military detention. Ji-woo bribed a guard who hated the war. Another contact provided false identification papers. A third arranged transport. On a rainy Tuesday morning during a shift change when cameras were conveniently offline, Tai-sung walked out of prison wearing a guard's uniform. No alarm sounded. No one stopped him. Ji-woo waited in a stolen car 3 blocks away.
Get in, she said when she saw him.
You didn't have to come, Tai-sung said as he climbed in. If they catch you, then they catch us both. Drive or talk, but don't do both. They drove north out of Seoul into the mountains. The rain made visibility poor, which helped them avoid cameras and patrols. After 6 hours, they reached a small private spaceport used by smugglers and people who didn't ask questions. A ship waited for them. It was old and rusty, held together by repairs and luck. A man with a scarred face greeted them. You Tai-sung? Yes, got payment already. Don't care why you're running or where you're going. I take you to Meridian Point, you leave my ship, we never met. Clear? Clear. The flight took 2 days. Meridian Point was a station floating in unclaimed space exactly between human and Kethrin territory. It was neutral ground, supposedly. though everyone knew spies from both sides operated there. Traders, smugglers, and people avoiding the war filled its corridors. When they docked, Tae-sung felt nervous. He'd never been off Earth before his military service and never this far into space. The station was huge, a city in the void with sections that spun to create artificial gravity. "Stay close," Jiwoo said, camera hidden in her jacket. "And try not to look like an escaped prisoner." They found a cheap room in the station's lower levels. The walls were thin and everything smelled like recycled air, but it was safe. Velmara had sent new coordinates through the same mysterious encryption. The meeting was set for tonight, in a private docking bay in the neutral section. As the appointed time approached, Tae-sung changed into clean clothes Jiwoo had brought. His hands shook slightly as he buttoned his shirt. He was about to meet the leader of humanity's enemy, the queen of an empire that had killed millions of humans, but she was also a mother whose child he'd saved. "Ready?" Jiwoo asked. "No, but let's go anyway." The private docking bay was in the station's diplomatic quarter. Guards stood everywhere, human and Catherine both, watching each other with open hostility. Velmara waited at the entrance to Bay 7. "You came," she said, relief clear in her voice. "The Queen will be pleased. Is she here?" Tae-sung asked. "She arrives now." A Catherine ship appeared through the bay's force field, sleek and silver, moving with impossible grace. It landed without a sound. The airlock opened and guards emerged first. 6 Kethrans in ornate armor carrying weapons that hummed with energy. Then she appeared. Queen Lyravel was tall, even for a Kethran. Her silver skin had patterns of gold woven through it, marking her as royalty. She wore flowing robes that seemed to move on their own, catching light in ways fabric shouldn't. Her eyes were deep violet, old and sad and powerful all at once. Behind her, holding her hand, was Prince Narin. The child had grown in the months since Velian 7. He was healthy now, well-fed and dressed in fine clothes. But when he saw Tae-sung, his eyes went wide. He let go of his mother's hand and ran forward. "You!" Narin said in Korean, the word careful and practiced. "You saved me." The guards moved to stop him, but the queen raised a hand. Narin reached Tae-sung and grabbed his legs in a hug. Tae-sung stood frozen, unsure what to do. Then slowly he knelt down and hugged the child back.
"Hello, Narin," he said.
"I'm glad you're okay." Queen Lyravel approached. Up close, she was even more intimidating. She studied Tae-sung with those violet eyes, and he felt like she could see straight through him. "Tae-sung," she said, her Korean perfect and formal. "I have searched for you since my son's return. Your people made it difficult, but I am persistent when it concerns family." "Your Majesty," Tae-sung said, bowing awkwardly. He'd never met royalty before. "Please stand." "You saved my child's life. You owe me no bow." She placed a hand on Narin's head. "My son tells me you protected him with your own body, that you carried him through fire and weapons, that you refused to leave him behind even when your people commanded it. He was scared and hurt. I couldn't leave him. Why not? We are your enemy. He is Kethran. In war, mercy can be weakness." Tae-sung thought about his answer. Maybe, but he wasn't my enemy. He was just a child who needed help. That's bigger than war. The queen smiled, and it transformed her face. "Yes, you understand. This is why I needed to meet you, to thank you, and to tell you something important." She gestured, and her guards brought forward a case. Inside was something that looked like a crystal, glowing with soft blue light. "This is a royal seal," the queen explained. "I am naming you Shield Oath, a Kethran title. It means you are legally part of my family under my protection. No Kethran will harm you. This I swear on my throne and my life." Tae-sung stared at the crystal. "I don't understand. Why would you do this?" "Because you risked everything for my child when you had no reason to. Because you showed mercy in a merciless war. And because I need your help." "My help? How can I help you?" Queen Lyravel's expression became serious. "Narin should never have been on Velian 7. His caretaker fled there during a conflict within my court. But I have learned something terrible since then. The conflict was manufactured. Someone wanted Narin dead. Someone wanted to weaken my rule. Someone in your empire? No, someone outside both our empires." She pulled out a datapad and showed him documents, communication logs, financial records. "For months I have been investigating. I found evidence of a third party, an organization that profits from our war. They sell weapons to humans and Kethrans both. They manipulate events to keep the fighting going." Tae-sung looked at the data. Some of it was in languages he couldn't read, but the numbers were clear. Massive amounts of money flowing between accounts. Weapons shipments to both sides. This is impossible. Someone would have noticed. They did notice, and they were silenced. The Queen's voice was hard now. This organization, they call themselves the Prism Directive. They have agents in both our governments. They arranged for Naryn to be on Velion 7. They wanted him to die there, to push me toward total war with your people. Before Taesung could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Red emergency lights flashed. A voice came over speakers. Security breach in Bay 7. Armed intruders. The bay doors exploded inward. Human soldiers poured through, black armor and heavy weapons. They weren't regular military. Their gear was too good, too advanced. Private contractors. Get the Queen, one shouted. The Kethrin guards moved instantly, forming a shield around Liravel and Naryn. Energy weapons fired both ways. Taesung grabbed Jiwoo and pulled her behind a cargo container. Plasma bolts scorched the air where they'd stood. Through the chaos, Taesung saw the lead attacker. The man moved with military precision but wore no insignia. He carried a rifle that no regular soldier could afford. This was professional. This was a hit. Naryn screamed. A stray plasma bolt had come too close. The child ran from his mother's guards, scared and confused. He ran toward Taesung, the man who'd saved him before. The lead attacker saw his chance. He aimed at the child. Taesung didn't think. He ran forward and grabbed Naryn, turning his body to shield the boy. The plasma bolt hit him in the side, and pain exploded through his body. But he didn't let go. He held Naryn tight as they fell. No, the Queen screamed. More Kethrin ships arrived, drawn by the attack. The human contractors tried to retreat, but the Kethrins cut them off. Within minutes, it was over. The attackers were dead or captured, but the damage was done. Taesung lay on the cold metal floor, blood spreading beneath him. Naryn cried over him, calling for help. The Queen rushed over and knelt beside them. Why, she asked, tears in her violet eyes. Why do you keep saving him? Because someone has to, Taesung whispered. Because that's what humans do. The good ones anyway. The Queen pressed her hands over his wound. You will not die. I will not allow it. You are Shield Oath now. You are family. She looked up at her guards. Get him to my ship. Best medical care now. As they lifted him, Taesung saw Jiwoo filming everything, camera out and recording. She was crying but still working, still documenting. That was Jiwoo. Even in crisis, she found the story. The last thing Taesung saw before the pain pulled him under was Prince Naryn's face, determined and grateful, watching the man who'd saved him twice. Taesung woke in a room that looked like it was made of light. The walls glowed softly, changing colors in gentle waves. The bed beneath him felt like floating on water. For a moment he thought he was dreaming. Then he tried to move and remembered the pain. Except there was no pain. His side, where the plasma bolt had hit him, felt fine. Better than fine. He touched the spot carefully and found smooth skin, not even a scar. Kethrin Medical Technology, a voice said. A woman stood near the bed, her silver skin marking her as Kethrin. Much more advanced than human medicine. You are fully healed. How long was I unconscious? 3 days. The Queen insisted on the best care. The woman smiled. I am Dr. Yoonji. I am what you might call unusual. Unusual how? My mother was Kethrin. My father was human. She said it calmly, but Taesung heard the weight behind the words. I am one of very few hybrids. Most humans don't know we exist. The Kethrin Empire keeps people like me secret for diplomatic reasons. Taesung sat up slowly. The room adjusted around him, the bed shifting to support his back. Where am I? On Queen Liravel's personal medical ship. We're still near Meridian Point, but ready to move if needed. Dr. Yoonji checked readings on a screen that appeared from thin air. Your sister has been very worried. Would you like to see her? Jiwoo burst into the room before he could answer. She hugged him so tight he couldn't breathe. Don't ever do that again, she said. I thought you were dead. I watched you get shot protecting that child and I thought you were dead. I'm okay, Taesung said. Really, they fixed me. Jiwoo pulled back and Taesung saw her eyes were red from crying. But she was also excited. Taesung, the footage. The attack, the Queen, you saving Naryn again. I sent it everywhere. Every news network, every public forum. It's spreading across human and Kethrin space both. What are people saying? Everything. Some humans think you're a hero. Some think you're a traitor working with the enemy. But everyone's talking about the attack. About who sent those soldiers. The Prism Directive, Taesung said. That's what the Queen called them. The door opened again and Queen Lyravel entered, Prince Narin holding her hand. The child saw Taesung and smiled, but stayed close to his mother. The attack had scared him badly. You are awake, the Queen said. Good. We have much to discuss. She gestured and the walls changed. Images appeared, documents and photos floating in the air. Dr. Yunji has been helping me decode the data I showed you. The evidence against the Prism Directive goes deeper than I thought. Dr. Yunji waved her hand and the images rearranged. The Prism Directive isn't just selling weapons. They're actively creating incidents to escalate the war. The attack on Velian 7 that stranded Prince Narin? They arranged it. Border conflicts that killed thousands? They manipulated intelligence to make both sides suspicious. Why? Taesung asked. Why would anyone want this war to continue? Money, Jiwoo said, studying the documents. Look at these numbers. Billions of credits flowing through shell companies, both human and Kethrin officials taking payments. Queen Lyravel nodded. War is profitable for some. The Prism Directive sells weapons, medical supplies, ships, everything both sides need to keep fighting. The longer the war lasts, the richer they become. Another image appeared, showing a man in expensive clothes at a human political function. Taesung recognized him. That's Director Kwan. He was involved in my court-martial. Yes, the Queen said. He is one of many. In the Kethrin Empire, I have found similar corruption. Advisors who pushed for aggressive action. Military officers who ordered attacks on civilian targets to provoke human retaliation. The attack on Meridian Point, Taesung said, understanding. That was them too. Yes, they tried to kill Narin and make it look like a human military operation. It would have destroyed any chance of peace. The Queen's expression hardened. But they didn't count on you again. The door opened once more and a woman in human military uniform entered. She looked nervous, her eyes darting around the Kethrin ship. I'm sorry to interrupt, she said. I'm Subin, Terran Intelligence. I need to speak with Taesung. Everyone tensed. A human intelligence officer on a Kethrin ship could mean trouble. But Subin raised her hands, showing she was unarmed. I'm not here to arrest anyone. I'm here to defect. Defect? Jiwoo said. Why? Because I've been investigating the same thing the Queen has. Subin pulled out her own data device. I've been tracking unusual money flows in our military budget for months. Weapons purchases that don't add up. Orders that came from nowhere. When I tried to report it to my superiors, they shut me down. Then I heard about the attack here and put it together. She looked at Taesung. You're the most famous person in human space right now. Half the population thinks you're a traitor. The other half thinks you're showing us what humanity should be. But what matters is everyone's watching you. If you can expose the Prism Directive, people will listen. Dr. Yunji brought up more documents combining Subin's data with the Queen's evidence. The picture became clearer and uglier. The Prism Directive had agents everywhere, from low-level officers to high-ranking politicians. They'd been manipulating both sides for decades. This is enormous, Jiwoo said, her journalist mind working. This could end the war. But we need proof that no one can deny, something undeniable. We have communications, financial records, testimony, the Queen said. Is that not enough? It might be, Subin said. But the Prism Directive has been covering their tracks for years. Good lawyers will question every document. They'll claim it's fake propaganda from the enemy. Taesung stood up, feeling strength return to his body. Then we need to get direct evidence. Something from their own facilities. That would be dangerous, the Queen said. Everything we've done so far has been dangerous. Taesung looked at each of them. Where is their main facility? Subin and Dr. Yunji worked together, cross-referencing data. After several minutes, Dr. Yunji's face went pale. No, it can't be. What? Taesung asked. The main Prism Directive facility, the central hub for their operations. Dr. Yunji looked at him with sad eyes. It's on Velian 7. The room went silent. Velian 7, where everything had started, where Taesung had saved Narin, where he'd been shot protecting a child he didn't know. The planet was contested territory now, controlled by neither side, filled with scavengers and automated defenses. I'll go, Taesung said. No, the Queen said firmly. You have done enough. You have nearly died twice for my family. I will send my best soldiers. With respect, Your Majesty, this needs more than soldiers. It needs someone who knows human military systems and Kethrin technology. Someone both sides might trust. Taesung looked at Subin. And someone from human intelligence who knows what evidence we need. Subin nodded. I'll go with you. As will I, said a deep voice from the doorway. A Kethrin warrior stood there, tall and powerful, covered in ceremonial armor. I am Kal Shin, captain of the Queen's Elite Guard. If you return to Velian 7, you will need protection. Ji-woo stepped forward. And you'll need someone to document everything. I'm coming too. Absolutely not, Taesung said. It's too dangerous. You don't get to decide that. Ji-woo crossed her arms. This story needs to be told. The evidence needs context. People need to see it through human eyes, not just read data files. I'm coming. Taesung wanted to argue, but he knew his sister. Once Ji-woo decided something, nothing could change her mind. He looked at the Queen. Can you get us there? I can get you close. But Velian 7 is heavily monitored by both our militaries and the Prism Directive. Getting onto the surface will be your challenge. We'll figure it out, Taesung said. Then he knelt down in front of Prince Narin. I have to go away for a little while, but I'll come back. I promise. The child looked scared but nodded. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small crystal, similar to the one the Queen had given Taesung. For luck, Narin said carefully in Korean. Come back safe. Taesung took the crystal. It was warm in his hand, pulsing gently with light. I will. Thank you, Narin. As they prepared for the mission, Taesung felt fear settle in his stomach. He was going back to the place of his nightmares. Back to the battlefield where he'd nearly died. But this time it was different. This time he wasn't alone. And this time, they were fighting for something bigger than survival. They were fighting to end the war itself. The planet looked worse than Taesung remembered. From orbit, Velian 7 was brown and gray, scarred by weapons fire and abandoned warfare. Cities lay in ruins. The beautiful forests that once covered the northern continent were burned to ash. This was what war did. This was the real cost. The Queen's ship dropped them at the edge of the atmosphere in a small stealth shuttle. Kal Shin piloted with steady hands, avoiding sensor sweeps from both human and Kethrin patrols. Subin worked, the electronic warfare station, jamming signals and creating false readings. There, Subin said, pointing at her screen. Underground facility, grid reference 77 Alpha. That's where the Prism Directive communications are coming from. How far from where we'll land? Taesung asked. 20 kilometers, through contested territory. Subin didn't need to explain what that meant. Automated weapons, scavengers, possible patrols from both militaries, and the dangerous wildlife that had adapted to the war zone. Ji-woo checked her camera equipment. She'd brought multiple devices, each small enough to hide but powerful enough to record everything. When we get the evidence, I'll need time to verify it's real. Timestamps, encryption keys, metadata. Otherwise, people will say we faked it. You'll have time, Kal Shin said. His voice was calm, like they were going shopping instead of infiltrating an enemy facility. I will ensure it. They landed in an abandoned industrial zone on the outskirts of what used to be a major city. The shuttle touched down between ruined buildings, hidden from aerial surveillance. When the door opened, Taesung stepped out into hell. The air smelled like burning plastic and death. Wind carried ash that stuck to exposed skin. In the distance, something exploded, an old mine or weapons cache finally giving up. The ground was covered in debris, broken weapons, torn uniforms, pieces of buildings that had collapsed years ago. This way, Subin said, checking a handheld device. Stay close and stay quiet. Automated defenses are everywhere. They moved through the ruins carefully. Kal Shin took point, his Kethrin armor allowing him to see threats before they appeared. Taesung stayed in the middle with Ji-woo while Subin covered their rear. After an hour, they found the first bodies, scavengers by their mismatched equipment. They'd been dead for days, killed by turrets that still hummed with power. Kal Shin disabled the turrets with a device that sent electromagnetic pulses frying their circuits. Someone doesn't want visitors, Ji-woo said, filming the dead turrets. The Prism Directive has a lot to hide, Subin replied. They pressed on. The terrain got worse. They had to climb over collapsed buildings and wade through contaminated water. Twice they heard patrol vehicles and had to hide, pressing themselves into shadows while human soldiers passed nearby. The soldiers weren't looking for them. They were just patrolling, bored and tired. Tae-sung recognized the area they were entering. His squad had fought here during the retreat. He remembered that corner where they'd set up a medical station. He remembered that building where 3 soldiers had died while he tried to save them. "You okay?" Jiwoo asked quietly. "No," Tae-sung admitted, "but I'll manage." They reached the facility as the sun set. It was built into a hillside, hidden so well they would have missed it except for Subin's intelligence. A single entrance, guarded by advanced security systems. Cameras, motion sensors, armed drones patrolling the perimeter. "We'll never get past that," Jiwoo said. Kal-shin studied the defenses. "The cameras have a blind spot here between these 2 drones' patrol patterns. We have a 7-second window every 3 minutes. "That's not enough time," Subin said. "It is if we're fast." Kal-shin looked at Tae-sung. "Can you run?" "Yes." "Then we go on the next window. Be ready." They waited, tense and silent. The drones floated past, their weapons scanning for movement. The cameras swiveled on their mounts, covering every angle except for one small gap. Kal-shin counted down with his fingers. 3, 2, 1. They ran. 7 seconds to cross 50 meters of open ground. Tae-sung's legs pumped hard, old injuries protesting, but holding. Jiwoo kept pace beside him. They reached the door just as the cameras swung back. Kal-shin pressed a device against the lock and it opened with a soft click. Inside was a corridor of metal and concrete, lit by emergency lights. It smelled like recycled air and machine oil. They moved deeper, following Subin's directions. The facility was larger than it appeared from outside, spreading deep underground. "This place is huge," Jiwoo whispered. "What are they doing down here?" They found out soon enough. Through a window and a door, they saw a laboratory. Inside, scientists worked on weapons that combined human and Kethran technology, guns that fired both bullets and plasma, armor that used human materials with Kethran shielding. These weren't just selling weapons to both sides. They were creating new ones. "We need to get to the command center," Subin said. "That's where the communication logs and financial records will be." They avoided patrols by hiding in storage rooms and maintenance shafts. The facility was staffed but not heavily guarded. The Prism Directive didn't expect anyone to find this place, much less break in. The command center was 3 levels down. When they reached it, they found only 2 technicians on duty. Kal-shin moved so fast they didn't have time to sound an alarm. He disabled them with a touch that sent them into unconsciousness. Subin rushed to the main console. "This is it. Everything we need should be here." Her fingers flew over the keys, downloading data onto secure drives. "Jiwoo, start recording. I need you to film these screens as I access them. We need to show this is real, not edited later." Jiwoo set up her cameras, capturing every detail. Tae-sung watched the door, his heart pounding. They were so close. "Incredible," Subin breathed as data flooded her screens. Names, dates, payments, orders for attacks on both sides. Communications proving they started conflicts. This is everything. Then alarms blared. Red lights flashed throughout the facility. "They found us," Kal-shin said, "and we need to leave now." 30 more seconds, Subin said, her fingers still working. "Almost done." The door burst open. Soldiers poured in, mercenaries in black armor with no insignia. Kal-shin fired his weapon, energy bolts dropping 3 of them before they could react. But more came behind them. Tae-sung grabbed a fallen soldier's rifle and fired. The weapon was heavier than military issue, more powerful. His shots forced the mercenaries to take cover. Beside him, Jiwoo kept filming even as bullets sparked off the walls around her. "Got it!" Subin pulled the data drives free and stuffed them in her pack. "Go! Go!" They ran back the way they came, but the facility was waking up. Blast doors started closing, trying to trap them inside. Kal-shin threw something that exploded against a door, blowing it open just before it sealed. They dove through, bullets chasing them. In one corridor, a man waited for them. He was older, with gray hair and cruel eyes. He held a weapon pointed at Tae-sung. "You cost us a lot of money, hero. All that sentiment about saving children. Do you know how much we spent setting up the Valian 7 incident?" It was Gang Min, a mercenary Tae-sung recognized from intelligence briefings. He'd been human military once before he found more profit working for whoever paid best. "How much did they pay you to betray your own people?" Tae-sung asked. "More than you'll ever see." Gangmin's finger tightened on the trigger. Hyunwoo appeared from a side corridor and fired. The shot hit Gangmin in the shoulder, spinning him around. Tae-sung's former squad leader looked older, more tired, but his aim was still perfect. "Hyunwoo?" Tae-sung said in shock. "What are you doing here?" "Same as you, looking for proof." Hyunwoo fired again, forcing Gangmin to retreat. "I've been investigating the PRISM directive for months. After your trial, I started asking questions. Didn't like the answers I got." More mercenaries arrived. Hyunwoo pulled a grenade from his belt. "Get to your ship. I'll hold them here." "Come with us." "Can't. Someone needs to make sure these bastards don't follow you." Hyunwoo smiled, and it was sad and proud at the same time. "Besides, I owe you, for being right, for showing me what really matters." "Hyunwoo, go." Hyunwoo threw the grenade and pushed Tae-sung toward the exit. "Make it mean something." They ran. Behind them, explosions rocked the facility. Tae-sung heard gunfire, Hyunwoo's weapon barking as he bought them time. Then a massive explosion that shook the walls. Then silence. They reached the surface as the facility's self-destruct activated. The PRISM directive was destroying evidence, not realizing the evidence was already leaving in Subin's pack. The shuttle lifted off just as the hillside collapsed inward, the entire facility swallowed by fire and earth. In the shuttle, no one spoke. Jiwoo checked her footage. Subin verified her data drives. Kalshin piloted them away from the dying planet. And Tae-sung stared out the window, thinking about Hyunwoo and all the others who'd died so this truth could escape. As they reached orbit, they found themselves in the middle of a three-way standoff. Human warships on one side, Kethrin vessels on the other, and them in the middle, a small shuttle that somehow held the future in its storage drives. "This is Admiral Dae-hyun of the Terran Defense Fleet," a voice crackled over their radio. "Surrender the fugitives immediately or be destroyed." "This is Fleet Commander Telvan of the Kethrin Empire. The shuttle is under our protection. Any attack will be considered an act of war." Tae-sung took the radio. "Admiral Dae-hyun." The silence in space felt heavier than any battlefield. Two fleets faced each other, weapons armed, shields raised. In the middle, one small shuttle waited to see if truth was stronger than 2 centuries of hatred. Tae-sung watched the timer. The data transmission had finished 5 minutes ago. Both the human and Kethrin command ships were receiving the same evidence. Financial records proving the PRISM directive sold weapons to both sides. Communications showing they'd arranged attacks to escalate tensions. Names of officials in both governments taking bribes. "They're reviewing it," Subin said, monitoring the encrypted channels. "I can see their systems analyzing the data." Jiwoo held her camera steady, recording everything. "This needs to be documented. Whatever happens next, people need to see it." Kalshin kept his hands on the weapons controls. "If they decide to fire, we won't have time to run." Tae-sung thought about Prince Narin, about Queen Liravel, about Hyunwoo who'd sacrificed himself so they could escape, about all the soldiers on both sides who thought they were dying for something noble, when really they were dying to make corrupt people rich. The radio crackled. Tae-sung. It was Admiral Dae-hyun, and his voice was different now, quieter, older. "I'm looking at these files. Tell me this is real." "It's real, sir. We pulled it directly from their facility on Valian 7. Jiwoo filmed the whole extraction. Subin verified the encryption and timestamps. Another voice joined the channel. "This is Fleet Commander Telvan of the Kethrin Empire. Our analysis confirms these documents are genuine. The encryption keys match known PRISM directive protocols." "Director Kwan," Admiral Dae-hyun said. "He was one of my most trusted advisors. He pushed hard for your court-martial, Tae-sung. He said showing mercy to the enemy would destroy us." "He wanted to discredit me," Tae-sung said. Because my actions showed something the Prism Directive couldn't allow people to see. That Kethrans and humans aren't that different. That we can have compassion for each other. These files show attacks I ordered, the Admiral continued. Strikes on Kethran civilian targets. I thought the intelligence was solid. I thought I was protecting humanity. His voice broke slightly. How many people died because I trusted the wrong information? The same is true for us, Telvan said. I see orders I gave here based on false intelligence. Attacks on human colonies that I believed were military targets. The Prism Directive fed us lies and we believed them because we were already afraid. On the shuttle's view screen, Tai Sung saw something extraordinary. The human fleet's weapons powered down. Not all of them, but enough to show intent. A moment later, the Kethran ships did the same. I'm issuing an order, Admiral Daehyun said. All human vessels stand down. No aggressive action against Kethran forces until further notice. He paused. And someone get me Director Kwan in custody, now. Agreed, Telvan said. All Kethran vessels hold fire. We need to investigate this properly. Then, speaking directly to Tai Sung, the Queen wishes to speak with you. Queen Lyravel's voice came through. Tai Sung, you risked your life again, for my people and yours. I am bringing my ship forward. Will Admiral Daehyun meet me in person? The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Then yes, I'll meet you. But I want Tai Sung there too. He started this. He should see it through. They arranged a meeting on a neutral station called Haven 3, specially built for diplomatic functions. It took 3 days to set up. During that time, Jiwoo's footage spread across both human and Kethran networks. The evidence was undeniable. Public outrage exploded on both sides. Director Kwan was arrested trying to flee Earth. Other Prism Directive agents went into hiding, or were caught by angry governments who'd been manipulated for decades. The organization crumbled as its members turned on each other, trying to save themselves. The summit brought together more than just Admiral Daehyun and Queen Lyravel. Leaders from across human space arrived. Kethran royalty and council members came from the Empire. And standing between them all was Tai Sung, a medic who'd saved one child and somehow changed everything. The first meeting was tense. 200 years of war didn't vanish because of some files and footage. Humans and Kethran sat on opposite sides of the table, hands near weapons, eyes full of suspicion. Ambassador Chan Woo, a human diplomat with white hair and patient eyes, opened the discussion. We are here because both our peoples have been manipulated, used, made to kill each other for someone else's profit. The question now is what we do about it. Justice, said a Kethran council member. Those responsible must pay. Agreed, said a human general. But that doesn't solve the core problem. We still have border disputes. Resources we both need. 2 centuries of grief and anger. The debate went on for hours. Some wanted immediate peace. Others wanted trials first. Punishment for those who'd profited from the war. Some wanted territory agreements. Others wanted reparations. Then Prince Narration walked into the room. He was young, barely tall enough to see over the table. But he walked straight to Tai Sung and took his hand. Then he walked to Admiral Daehyun and bowed the way Kethran children show respect. You are the human leader? Narration asked in careful Korean. One of them, yes, the Admiral replied, looking uncomfortable. Tai Sung saved me, Narration said. He is human. I am Kethran. But when I was scared and hurt, he didn't see enemy. He saw a child who needed help. The young prince looked around the room at all the adults. If he can do that in war, can't you do that in peace? The room fell silent. Matriarch Oksun, an elderly human stateswoman with eyes that had seen too much war, spoke first. Out of the mouths of children, she said softly. We've been so focused on what divides us, we forgot what could unite us. The child is right, Queen Lyravel said. My son lives because one human chose compassion over hate. How many more children, human and Kethran, could live if we all made that choice? Admiral Daehyun stared at Tai Sung for a long moment. I called you a traitor. I wanted you punished for saving a life. What does that say about what this war has done to us? It says we forgot what we were fighting for, Tai Sung replied. We got so used to fighting that we forgot we were supposed to be protecting people. All people. The summit continued for 2 more weeks. It wasn't easy. There were angry words and walked-out meetings. Some delegates refused to compromise. But slowly, piece by piece, they built something new. The Peace Accord of Haven 3 established several key points. First, immediate ceasefire across all fronts. Second, Joint investigation into all PRISM directive activities and prosecution of those involved. Third, establishment of neutral zones where humans and Kethrans could interact peacefully. And fourth, creation of what Taesung called the Bridge. The Bridge would be an organization dedicated to human-Kethran cooperation, medical care, scientific research, cultural exchange. It would be funded by both governments and staffed by volunteers from both species.
Who will lead this bridge?
A Kethran asked. Every eye in the room turned to Taesung. He wanted to say no. He wanted to go home, rest, try to rebuild his quiet life. But he looked at Prince Narin standing proudly beside his mother. He thought about all the wounded he'd treated on both sides. He thought about Hyunwoo sacrificing himself for truth. I'll do it, Taesung said. If that's what you want. It is not just what we want, Queen Lyravel said. It is what you have already been doing. Building bridges between enemies, showing both sides their shared humanity. The peace accord was signed on a warm spring day. Taesung stood between Admiral Daehyun and Queen Lyravel as they placed their marks on the document. Cameras from across known space recorded the moment. The war didn't officially end that day. There were still conflicts to resolve, still anger to cool, but it was a beginning. 5 years later, Taesung stood in a medical station on the border between human and Kethran space. Around him, human and Kethran doctors worked together, treating patients from both species. The bridge had established 20 such stations across contested territory. Jiwoo had won every major journalism award for her coverage of the peace process. She continued documenting the bridge's work, showing both species that cooperation was possible. Subin now led a joint task force hunting down the last PRISM directive agents. Most were in prison. A few had escaped to places unknown. But the organization was broken, its power gone. The war had officially ended 2 years ago with the Treaty of Tarakel. Not all the fighting had stopped. Some groups on both sides still wanted blood, but most people wanted peace and their voices were louder now. Prince Narin, now a teenager, studied at a joint human-Kethran academy. He learned both languages, both cultures, preparing for a future where his generation might not even remember the war. Taesung! A voice called. He turned to see a group of young medics approaching. 3 humans, 2 Kethrans working together as naturally as breathing. The future walking toward him. Is it time for rounds, he asked. Yes, sir, one of the humans said. We have 17 patients today. 10 humans, 7 Kethran. Then let's go see them. Taesung smiled. Remember, it doesn't matter what they look like or where they're from. They're all just people who need our help.